Hello everyone and welcome to my review of Half-Life Alyx. I've finished the game now twice and done pretty much everything that there is to do in the game, save for some of the more ludicrous achievements in the game. If we want a super duper condensed opinion, I'd say that the game is very good, though a bit lacking in content and maybe not quite the systems or VR title that some people thought it would be. In many ways it's a very classic Half-Life type of game. If you enjoyed the previous titles in the series, you will love this one too. Speaking of which, you shouldn't play this game unless you have played through Half-Life 1, 2 and both episodes of Half-Life 2. Half-Life Alyx doesn't explain its setting too much, so it's presumed that the player knows about the events in the previous games. Many of you are probably in the situation where you are wondering whether you should get into VR to play this game. Please do not buy a VR headset just to play this game, especially now when they are very pricey due to high demand. Explore the VR games catalog a bit and see if there are some other titles that interest you as well. I have seen one person here in Finland resell their €1,100 Valve Index headset for a €200 loss only after playing through Half-Life Alyx with it. While a good game, the story of Half-Life Alyx lasts about 15 hours and it will be a good while before there are any proper mods for the game. In other words, Half-Life Alyx will keep you in VR only for a relatively short time, as impressive as it may be. Personally, I got into VR at the end of last year, after being interested in it for quite a while. After having a chance to try headsets a few times, and seeing Oculus Rift S on a discount, I made the final decision after Half-Life Alyx was announced to finally get into VR. On the technical side, the game has ran very stable on my PC, though it certainly is a bit demanding. Older processors such as my Intel Core i7-4790K are enough, but the game will require a powerful graphics card like a Radeon RX 5700 XT or GeForce RTX 2070 Super if you want high detail, or at least those two were the cards that I had at hand and they provided a good experience. As with other VR games, you'd want the game to run at least 60 frames per second for a comfortable experience. I noticed that lowering the shadow details gave me a lot more FPS while not affecting the visuals too much. Overall, the game ran very stable, with no crashes during gameplay. After starting the game and loading a level, the game was a bit jittery for a moment, but it always went away quickly enough. So, what makes this game so great that it has a Metacritic score of 93? Overall, it could be summed up that everything is very polished and well thought out in Half-Life Alyx. Like in previous games of the series, there is a good balance of action, puzzles and story moments. This isn't one of those gimmicky VR games that rely on one thing to keep you interested. What made me most suspicious about the game before actually playing it was whether the story could be up to the standard after such a long time, especially with all the changes at Valve and now having the game in VR. My doubts were quickly blown away, as the story is well written and the voice acting is top notch. Half-Life now has its first speaking player character, portrayed by Ozioma Akagha, who does an excellent job as a younger and more naive Alyx. The story starts a bit slow, giving the player some time to get used to the VR setting, but it picks up speed quite soon. Frankly, while playing for the first time, I didn't really keep up with the plot in the start, as I was simply amazed by all the details in the environment. Exploring is much more satisfying when you can actually pick up objects and oogle them right in front of your face. The gravity gloves make life a lot easier in the game while not being too dominant like it sometimes felt in Half-Life 2 with the gravity gun. If you see an item across the room, you just pull it to yourself like Neo instead of having to walk over. Combat is maybe the element that has been changed the most by VR. The weapons in the game have to be aimed and reloaded by hand, which is completely different from using mouse and keyboard. The pistol especially is very cool to use, with the magazine inserting and unlocking the slide after a reload. Since your combat efficiency is now lower, there are also less enemies overall in the game. Especially in the beginning, combat situations can make you panic a bit and not hit anything, if you aren't used to VR shooting games. Fighting Combine soldiers is especially intense, as you need to take cover from their fire and prevent them from outflanking you. The weapons felt balanced for the most part, though I felt that the shotgun was too limited in range. The grenade launcher mod on the shotgun felt like it made combat a bit too easy, as it is easy to aim the grenades and there tends to be a lot of them available in combat areas. If you have problems with aiming in the game, I suggest you invest in laser sight mods, as they make it a lot easier to aim the guns. When it comes to survivability, Alyx can take as much damage as Gordon in previous games, but this is compensated by having health stations after almost every corner. There are many different puzzles in the game, most of which are solved using Alyx's special tool. They are mostly satisfying, though I found the combined locker puzzles to be a bit annoying during the final levels. Spending several minutes in a puzzle with wonky controls just to get some more ammo was a bit too much. While there have been horror elements in previous Half-Life games, the VR environment of Half-Life Alyx really turns it up to 11. At times it feels like you are playing a horror game, being in the spooky, dark, corpse-filled environment yourself, and having the screaming monsters come in your face will make Ravenholm feel like a kindergarten. I found this element in the game to be very entertaining, but it might be a bit too much for some who could play the previous games without getting too uncomfortable. Even though Alyx doesn't come face to face with many friendly characters in the game, the radio chatter between her and the Resistance member Russell gives a calming and often funny presence in the otherwise gloomy and dark game. While being funny at times, their conversations aren't over the top, most of the time anyway. Now we get to the negatives, which there are actually multiple, but Half-Life Alyx still remains a very good game despite them. My biggest gripe is with the lack of content, which I sort of implied earlier. Since the game is very linear like all Half-Life games, there isn't a lot of replay value in the story campaign. Most players will likely be satisfied with playing through the 15-hour campaign just once. There are no different ways to play through the game or choices to be made in the story. I played a second playthrough only to try some more weapon mods and to make this review. In Half-Life Alyx there isn't any extra levels or multiplayer modes like the deathmatch in previous games. Maybe I'm just too stingy, but I would want some more content in a full price game, even if the existing content is very good. This is the main reason why Half-Life Alyx might not bring everyone to VR permanently on its own. It just doesn't last that long. When it comes to smaller issues, I found the alien enemies a bit too easy in the game. While the combined soldiers will blast you to death if you don't pay attention, the aliens rarely got to even hurt me. There isn't a lot of variety among alien opponents, mostly you just shoot zombies, headcrabs and barnacles who don't stand a chance against your firepower. Talking about guns, there are only a few of them in the game, which usually isn't a problem with all the modifications available, but it would have been nice to have some long-range weapon in the game. The pistol, while accurate, doesn't pack enough punch for sniping. In fact, I find it pretty stupid that combined soldiers would still live after several headshots from it, at least on hard difficulty. Half-Life Alyx uses a game slot system, where each playthrough has its own slot. In addition to manual saving, the game also has good autosave system. Unfortunately, each game slot only holds a handful of saves, which get overwritten as you play, which makes replaying the same game slot annoying. Your progress might go away if you load an older save and play it for a while, such as when showing the game to friends. Well, when it's possible after this pandemic thing, that is. Alright, time for conclusions. I would say that Half-Life Alyx is the fourth best Half-Life game after the two main titles and Episode 2. It is very much a Half-Life game with improved visuals and a new platform in the form of VR. Hopefully we will see more Half-Life games in the near future, as this will make you thirsty for more. It also shows that the basic gameplay of Half-Life is a bit outdated at times. For someone who is used to open world games that are rife with different ways to play, the linear gameplay of Alyx can feel a bit like a blast from the 90s past. Fortunately, Valve has sugarcoated everything with excellent visuals, told a great story and made the combat feel new and intense. If you already own a VR headset, this is a must-buy title, even at the full price, after you played the previous games, that is. If you are a Half-Life fan who's not in VR yet, find some other VR titles that interest you as well before buying any headset. Half-Life games are a bit like that movie or TV series that you know is really good, but which you still haven't seen. They will still be great even if experienced a bit later. Just try to dodge the spoilers. You might get Alyx at a bit more reasonable price too later on, not to mention cheaper devices to run it with. That's pretty much all I have to say. I hope you found this review informative. Please leave a like if you did and subscribe for more content like this in the future. Thanks for watching and stay safe.